And what's going on, Los Angeles Bruin Nation, LAFB fam? Your dynamic duo back together again for all things UCLA football. The Thriller and the Madman here serving all of your beloved Mighty Bruins needs. So excited to be here as always. But before we talk about incoming transfer portal gets and the first few days of fall camp, we always have to begin with my brother from another mother. Thriller, how we doing this weekend? How's life? It's great to see you. I haven't had a chance to talk with you since Big Ten Media Day, so it's great to finally reconnect after about 10 days.
I know. It's been way too long. We were talking about it in the pre-show. Just a lot of good stuff coming out. We're in fall camp officially. We are less than a month away now. It is August 2nd, the day we are recording this. So we got a game at the end of the month in about 4 weeks exactly from today. Life is good, man. Football is on the horizon. UCLA's got some great notes we could talk about. Got a new transfer in. So vibes are high when it comes to UCLA football in these preliminary days before we get the games going.
Vibes are high indeed, Thriller, and very exciting. I mean, man, 28 days until that Rose Bowl is going to be rocking in the night against the Utah Utes. Football back again. I mean, we're just sort of on the cusp of it here. Thriller, first topic before we talk sort of fall camp. Another transfer portal get. This is going to be UCLA's 32nd transfer portal get over the course of this offseason. Presumably the last, but you never know here. That it's putting UCLA's transfer portal rankings now overall at 14th. So a very significant transfer portal season for UCLA. Jalen Hargrove comes to the Bruins as a graduate transfer from Rice. Spent the last 2 years at Rice. Played in 19 games total. Recorded one tackle, so sort of seldom used rotational piece with Rice. Had that one tackle against Texas Southern. He comes in as a graduate transfer with 1 year of eligibility left. I love the size, Will, 6'4", 317 pounds. And I think he's going to come in here and just sort of provide much-needed depth on that defensive line. You know, you got Hargrove now. Obviously, we're expecting big things out of Keanu Williams, Gary Smith III. We got Nico DeVilliers. We got Anthony Jones, Devin Apu. You know, you need that Big Ten girth, but you also need that Big Ten depth. And I think Hargrove is just sort of a great rotational piece, again, as we're looking to fortify that defensive line. So Hargrove comes in, veteran, a lot of experience in terms of another Division I locker room. Hasn't played a ton, but I think there's a lot of tread left on that tire with 1 more year of eligibility to come in and make an impact. Your thoughts on Hargrove, Will?
Yeah, I mean, it's a position that I will never, diss or kind of, go after somebody for adding elements to that, position group. So defensive line room. Yes, we got Keanu Williams. Yes, we got Gary Smith, who we're going to be talking about, who's doing really well at practice. Those guys both got hurt last year, right? So you need to have depth in those scenarios. So bringing in a guy like Hargrove, yes, I'm a little worried about the experience. He was a special teamer for most of it, but has the body size, and we have a coach that we've talked about at length, Kaika Malloy and Jethro Franklin, that can get this guy elevated to the spot he needs to be a contributing factor for this team. So 6'4", 317 pounds. Give me those guys in the trenches, man. We got those Big Ten bodies. And, position group looks, better than I anticipated, given some of these early practice reports of our starters, in Gary and Keanu. But always got to be prepared for a backup plan, especially in the game of football when injuries are rampant, Madman. So I like the move. Keep adding these guys. We have a wide receiver, that, was granted eligibility at Nevada last year that wants to UCLA as well. So there's a lot of options out there. I love how aggressive this transfer portal class is. You mentioned 32 guys coming in for UCLA. DeShaun is out there. He is shaking hands. He's kissing babies, if you will, trying to get this team up and running. And it's showing from the amount of players that are coming in, the amount of talent that's coming in, most importantly.
No question, Will. And I think it's showing just sort of this relentless spirit of the transfer portal. Unfortunately, given where we are timeline-wise, I'm getting less and less confident about Caden Robinson potentially joining us this year. And I know we talked about that last week at length. So fingers crossed there, Bruin fans. Will and I have already spoken about what he could possibly mean to this receiving group. But if he can't, be part of this 2025 season, it's just sort of an opportunity for other guys to step up, including that latest addition as well. So Thriller, exciting to see this roster form here. But I think the big news of the week is the kickoff of fall camp. The guys have been out there now for a couple of days, finally seeing them in pads, finally seeing them doing football-related activities, drills. It's the smell of the air. It's that feeling of the grass. Fall is here. Football is here. Thriller, lots to sort of uncover. Granted, it's a few days of fall camp. You don't always get to see 11 on 11 or even 7 on 7. So, things are spotty in terms of drills and activities, but just some of your early impressions, things that you've been tracking about fall camp these first few days.
Yeah, man, a lot of good nuggets out of it. I got to shout out our guy, Ben Royer, who's working for the OC Register. I mean, I work during the week, so unfortunately I can't get down there. You very much the same. You had a lovely trip to New York with your wife and newborn girl as well. So just a lot of great stuff going on in our lives, but we got to make sure we're up to date on what's going on.
No doubt.
At the fall practices. So Ben Royer, want to give him a big shout out from the OC Register. Got some great tidbits on what's going on at fall camp. The Nico Iamaleava, praise from the teammates. It's one thing if you are the talented player coming in as the 5-star transfer that we know him to be, but when your teammates start singing your praises, that's what I really kind of perk my ears up. And some of these kids, man, are just talking about him like he is like the next coming of a great quarterback at UCLA. Let's read Jack Peterson's quote here. He slings it. It's a nice, firm spiral, man, and guy doesn't miss out there. He's great. Literally can't say enough great things. And then you get Isaiah Chisholm, the transfer linebacker, coming in from Oregon State going, you can tell that he knows that he's good and he's about his business. I feel like it's as simple as that. So Nico's coming in there. He's taking the majority of the first-team reps. And to his credit, he looks like he's mastered most of the playbook, according to what Tino Sinceri has said and according to what some of the media has said that has been there. So there's a lot of upside. That was my biggest concern because he didn't get a spring. But, I was able to do one of those live spaces when you guys were at Media Day. And Camden Jensen's dad came in, who is Dan Jensen. He played at Wyoming. His son's going to UCLA as a tight end recruit. So I kind of asked him, what stood out to you about UCLA? What made you guys want to come to be a Bruin? And he told me about Tino in one of his, his long-filled great answer about the program. He said Tino's number one thing was to simplify the offense that the enemy made so complicated. He verbalized that to Camden and the other recruits that were there, and then we're talking to him. And it seems like he's done just that. And the really encouraging thing about this is they asked Jack Peterson, who has become a leader on this team. I think we're going to see more Jack Peterson than I think we anticipated. He said the offense, and I'm going to be quoting from him right here, one word, elusive. So big plays are going to be happening in this offense. I mean, we saw it in waves when you saw Indiana come in to the Rose Bowl last year, put 42 on us. A litany of big plays were going on with Curtis Rourke in that offense. So that has been a big kind of encouraging thing. And then, the defensive line room, Gary Smith's up to 340 from 315. Yeah. He is dominating on the defensive line here in the early parts. Got the media was right around him, according to Ben Royer. And he said, it was really impressive. Ilkaika Malloy and Jethro Franklin were like, this guy's looking great. You could see the optimism, the awe in their eyes for a guy like Gary Smith coming back for a 5th year of college football after he missed all of last season. So that is a big, big return. Keanu Williams making some plays out there. Key Lawrence jumping in, making some plays, our new transfer right there from Mississippi State. So you have a lot of good guys, and it just seems like a lot of great stuff is coming out of it. So that's the initial big popping storylines that I saw out of the first few days of fall camp. Let's click on some of them. Which ones were you most interested in that we just laid out there?
Yeah, Thriller. No, I think you said that really well. And I want to start with Nico because it just feels like 2025, it sort of begins and ends with Nico right now. He is the great barometer in terms of what the projection of the season can be. And, Will, I had a chance to ask Nico a couple of questions at Media Day. And the first thing that really jumped out is exactly what you were saying. The first is, he looks the part of LA, of a leader. There's a swag. There's an aura. he came in his baby blue suit. He had the UCLA pin. He had the shades on. It was California cool. It was very much, this is my team, and I'm here to really make a big statement. So poised with the media, answered every question. There was a lot of fishing expeditions with some of the national media about his whole recruiting situation with Tennessee. Handled it like an absolute pro. And then when we got into more of the football-related conversation, two things really jumped out for me, Will. The first is he said, when we talked about what's the biggest jump you want to make from last year to this year in terms of your game, he said, look, physically, I feel great. I feel like I'm in the best shape that I've been, but I felt physically really good last year. For me, it's all about the mental aspect of the game and how I process information, how I cognitively understand the quarterback position. And he said, being in the Tino Sunseri system, he said it's like being in high school all over again for me in terms of the learning and how I need to sort of absorb knowledge to be the best possible quarterback I can be. And then he talked about just the importance of being with his teammates. And he said, I'm spending so much time with my teammates in the locker room, in extracurricular activities, really building that rapport. And I think you're seeing it. I think they're gravitating to him as a leader. And I think he's really emphasizing this mental aspect of the game. And what I love about what some of the comments said about how he can zip it and his mechanics, well, the guys that he admires the most in terms of who he's patenting his game after is CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, Bryce Young. It's guys that are mobile, younger guys, but guys that have tremendous mechanics and incredible arm talent. So when you factor in who he's modeling his game after, emphasizing the mental aspect of the game and really emphasizing his teammates as well, this is what gets you so excited about this particular year, Will. And you've said it a ton, that the one sort of tipping point position, right, in this sport, and we all know it's quarterback. And you can overcome a lot with great quarterback play, particularly in a schedule that is not going to be very forgiving week over week. And so to me, the fact that they're gravitating to him so much, this is his team, and UCLA is going to go as far as Nico takes them. So I'm very excited about what I'm hearing about Nico Iamaleava.
Yeah, man. And it's one thing to talk. Like he looked very impressive at the media days you sent over and I got to watch on YouTube. But when he's walking the walk in practice, his teammates are like, this is really our first chance to be around a guy like Nico and see how he plays. And he's looking great. He's looking as advertised. That's all you want to hear as somebody that covers the team, that has a lot of vested interest in the success of UCLA football moving forward. So that was very, very encouraging. A couple other tidbits kind of coming from this. Javian Thomas had a big play in practice week one. And I think, DeShaun's kind of tipping his hand. He said, I think we got a great 1-2 punch between Javen and Jalen Berger, who we kind of expected. So that might be the two-headed monster we see out of the backfield for UCLA. So that was really encouraging. I thought it was really interesting that they may move Garrett DeGiorgio to a guard situation, maybe to right tackle this year. Yeah. They just want to get the best 5 out there. And with DeGiorgio's D1 experience, I mean, this guy's got like 40-plus starts in his career. This guy has been at UCLA basically as long as we've done this podcast. You know what I mean? So it's just encouraging to know that, DeGiorgio can move around and he's comfortable with doing that just to make sure that the line is as best as possible going into camp. So those are a couple key ones. Just to click on that, Nico comments too of who he models his game after. CJ, Jaden, and Bryce Young, all California kids, too, all Southern California kids. And his highlight tape coming out of high school, man, like the mechanics, the release, the zip on the ball. I'm not joking when I say this. It was probably the second best high school highlight tape I've seen, outside of maybe Caleb Williams, when I saw him coming out of the Washington, D.C. area. So all of the talent in the world, Nico Iamaleava possesses. I mean, go watch his throw on like a slant route to Chris Brazzell in the Oklahoma game. Just on the numbers, like 30 yards downfield, just a beautiful zip. His talent is breathtaking, man. So I'm just thrilled about that. What are some other, points you're like interested in, kind of clicking in on when it comes to the fall practice?
The two in particular, Thriller, I love the point about Javion Thomas because even at Media Day, DeShaun talked about Javion. Specifically when we were talking about the running back room, he said, I'm feeling really good about this running back room. I love the depth. But the first guy he talked about was Javion Thomas. And he said, look, he's ready to make such a huge impact for UCLA, leading rusher at Cal last year, Will. And I think there's a perfect thunder and lightning situation that's going to happen with him and Berger. And I think what that will open up as well for Nico in terms of options, in terms of checkdowns as well, in terms of different down and distance, when you can go thunder and lightning in that Tino Sunseri system. I love that because, Will, for as successful as the running back room at UCLA has been for really the better part of 10 years, you can even go as far back as 15 years, from the Jonathan Franklin years onwards. I don't know if any of those 15 years you've had a true thunder and lightning combination. You've had depth, you've had a two-headed monster, you've had guys, sometimes 3-4 running backs at a time, but guys that are clearly slotted in that role. And Berger is going to be that inside, the tackle type of running back. And then Thomas is that kind of scat back. He's got the speed, he's got the twitchiness. So I'm very excited to see what that can entail, particularly in Tino Sunseri's system, where that's, I think, a new wrinkle that we didn't actually even see at Indiana last year. And so how Tino Sunseri uses the thunder and lightning to me is huge. And then, Will, I love the point about finding a slot for DiGiorgio because I think we're very confident about Sam Ewan at center. You got to have Armella. You got to have Cortland Ford out there. Those are sort of your three anchors. And now you're going to fill in the remaining two spots based on the best talent on the field. And having that veteran experience at DiGiorgio, I think, is going to be critical. But it can be, right side of the line, left side of the line, tackle, guard. It all depends on what the other guys feel very confident in because you got to keep Iamaleava, standing upright. All of the arm talent in the world cannot be actualized if he's not standing up. And then I think the third piece, Will, you said it best. Keanu and Gary Smith III stepping up is going to be so, so huge. I mean, we lost 4 NFL guys, Will, the fearsome foursome in that front seven. That is going to be all the difference in the world. Look, I think how this defensive line can even be kind of at 50-50 in some of the higher echelon games or hold their own in some of these higher echelon games, it's going to be the difference, Will, in 2 or 3 wins at the least. And how they sort of stay fresh later in games. That's the big question. And so we're very excited about the depth, but you want to be able to have that top end talent as well to sort of be able to anchor. And they're really looking at Keanu and really looking at Gary Smith to really be those anchors. Seeing, Gary Smith come in at 340, very, very exciting because for what that means for that interior defensive line. Will, if last year was a tale of games that were 20-17 or 16-13, or things of that nature, I think we're headed towards a year that's going to be much higher scoring games. I think we're going to be in a lot of 34-31 type of games. I think it's going to be a lot of 33-30, 37-34 type of games. And can the defense come up with just enough stops, enough opportunism to be able to win those games? Because I got to be honest with you, Will, from everything we're hearing, from everything we're learning, from everything that our sources are telling us, this offense, as long as Nico can stay upright, is going to be able to score. And there's weapons all over the field. And I think the defense has taken a step back a little bit with just all of that talent that's departing. But we're excited about who's coming in. And if they can just sort of hold their own and be opportunistic, I really feel like, Will, this 2025 version of UCLA, there's a lot of 2022 USC. That first year of Caleb coming to USC feels a lot like the first year of Nico coming to UCLA. I think there's going to be a fresh dynamism offensively. Can that defense just be opportunistic enough to let the offense win some games?
Man, so I was laughing because I had the exact same thought. It feels like Chip, though. Like, remember with Chip, very different offenses. I think this one's going to be a lot more pass happy than Chip's more run offensive approach. But it was like, can we get a top 60 defense? If you get a top 60 defense with what we think the offense is, because I'll be honest, I think this offense right now, you should put them in the top 40 in the country just because of what you have at the quarterback and the guy calling the plays. This could elevate into a top 25 offense, I think, in the country very effectively, knowing what we know, what occurred at Indiana last year, knowing what we know with the talent in that room, can the defense get stops? And that's, I think for me, I'm looking at Coach Meat's room. Can you guys win the turnover battle week after week? To me, that's what it has. We don't know what's in the pass rushing department. We just, on paper, we got a lot of guys that have some upside, but they haven't shown it on the field. So it's harder to project where that kind of comes in. We know the defensive tackle spot. We can be good against the run, but we've talked about this. 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6. You got to get him off the field. You got to get to the quarterback. I don't know if we have that guy. While I like our linebackers, I do think they will struggle as the season goes on because they're a little bit undersized compared to what everything else is within the conference. When you think of the, Big Ten Conference, it's your Ron Danes, your freaking like 230, 40-pound running backs, Le'Veon Bells. I mean, even look at Michigan. They had a linebacker switch to playing running back last year, Kalel Mullins, who's like just a tank of a human being there. So you have all these different options. Can they stay upright, and can they win the turnover battle? Because if they can, we talked about it, 7-8 wins in the regular season and maybe a bowl win. This puts UCLA in a different stratosphere moving forward in college football. You got to get that done, get the turnover battle, keep Nico upright, and good things will happen for UCLA football.
Good things will happen indeed, Thriller. From your mouth to God's ears. Just so exciting. And it's so fun, Thriller. I'll close with this, that how year over year in college football, things can change so quickly stylistically, right? Like last year's team was so talented defensively, and the offense was the great unknown. And in just 12 months, now we're talking about a completely different narrative where this offense, to your point, and I think, Will, you're spot on. I think this is a top 25 offense. And if things are clicking, I think they're a top 20 offense. And, we're talking about big things offensively, consistently 30 points a game, perhaps even mid 30 points a game. And now the great unknown, of course, defensively. Will, I'll say this. Great point about the linebackers, because we're excited about Chisholm. Can John Vaughns be that hybrid, linebacker kind of safety combination as well? Size is a bit of a concern. They're very dynamic, incredible
very
athletes.
Talented,
super talented. I think sideline to sideline, there's a ton of talent there. Little bit undersized to sort of deal with the pounding in the box. But the other element to it, Will, is also depth. And so like if one of those guys gets nicked up, God forbid, who's back there? And I think there's a little bit of a drop off quickly in that linebacker room as well. So I think the key is going to have to be, can they be bend but don't break? Look, we'll give up what we need to in between the 20s and sort of, have to sort of adjust accordingly. But can we be opportunistic in terms of red zone defense when the field shrinks, turn those touchdowns into field goals, and turn some of those scoring opportunities into turnovers? And I think that's going to make all the difference this particular season. But so exciting, Thriller. I mean, my goodness, we're 28 days away. Fans, we're going to have so many more insights and nuggets for you as fall camp continues to progress. Let's see who some additional diamonds in the rough are. Let's see who's going to surprise us. Let's see who's going to wow us here over the next few days. But as always, Thriller and Madman got everything that you need for all things UCLA football. Wishing everybody a blessed and happy weekend in Los Angeles and wherever you may be. Please hit that like and subscribe button as we continue to build the UCLA LAFB brand. And as always, Bruin Nation, fours up forever.